Hi, Chris. Welcome to our Funnel Vision podcast. So excited to have you on today.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, what we're going to chat about today is talking about processes and people.
Hmm.
Scaling a business always comes down to balancing people and process. And
Sure.
today we're going to unpack a little bit about that and why, kind of why hiring before building structure can cause chaos and how strong processes actually can drive profit and culture and all that good stuff. So to start out, tell us a little bit about when you hear the phrase like, people before processes multiply problems, processes before people multiply profits.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you in practical terms?
Sure. Well, I mean, we see it in sales a lot. And I work as a sales trainer and consultant, and more often than not, one of the primary issues that my prospects are having is that they have maybe 5 or 10 sales professionals on the team, and they have just as many different variations of a process, and everyone has their own way of selling, and they have like their basic, they attempt to instill their basic values or like a very loose process, but the process isn't really disciplined or adhered to or reinforced. And so what happens is, as you bring on people, the headaches multiply and the problems multiply because there isn't a repeatable, scalable way that you onboard people into and then hold them accountable to. So, when I look at any area within a business, specifically the sales department, which is where I focus, if you are able to incorporate the processes and the systems prior to expanding the team, prior to bringing on more people, then you are able to create a common language and a way of doing things, like an ABC company way of selling, right? Entering information, important data, how you are held accountable for it, what your meeting structure is, et cetera, et cetera. The more you have that locked in, the more you enhance the odds of finding success with any new hire. And one of the hidden costs for any growing business that they seldom slow down to actually look at is just how much it costs to hire someone that doesn't work out. And it could be anywhere from typically 50 to $150,000, which is just a huge amount of money, time, energy, effort, etc. And so the more you can slow down to speed up,
Hmm.
the more you set yourself up for success.
Yeah, I have this conversation with clients, all the time. Is that like, okay, we want to hire more, another salesperson. We want to build our sales team. Um, and they don't have that process in place. And I'm
Yeah.
always on your side, exactly with what you're saying. Like, you've got to have that process in place. On the reverse of that, I have clients that come to us and say, we need to hire more salespeople because the 3 or 4 or 5 people that we have in place are not succeeding, and we know like maybe this isn't a them problem, this is
Yeah.
a you problem. Like, this has to be fixed. There's probably a reason why they're not succeeding.
Yeah.
And have you set them up for success with those repeatable processes to make it, as streamlined as possible.
Hmm.
Do you have a story that you can share from your own experience where adding people before processes has created chaos?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think I have myriad examples from both sides of the coin here. I was working with a company years ago, marketing company, which had about 8 salespeople. And if when I was speaking with the president of the company, I asked him, like, if I were to ask your 8 salespeople what their sales process was, how many different answers would I get? And he said probably 8. And I said, so let's talk about this. And what we determined was they were probably on a scale of 1 to 10 operating around a 3 or 4. And their, revenue was about 8 million. And the more the president and I dug into it, the more he realized that just by implementing processes that everyone's adhering to, that everyone can be held accountable to, which will drive a standard of behavior and of performance, we would probably be looking at an 11 or $12 million company. If he had done that on the front end, if he had slowed down to do it and do exactly what you shared, which is slow down, implement these things, have it be the ABC company way of operating within the sales department, and then hire people into a well-oiled machine, which would then increase their chances for success and also give you an opportunity to determine whether or not they're a good fit much sooner because you have so many more data points to work off of. So, that we ended up working together and we ended up getting them there. But I mean, we're talking about a multi-million-dollar issue for a company that, had about 40 people. So it wasn't a huge company at the time. So a multi-million-dollar gap, it was enormous for them. And then on the other side, I've had companies bring me in when they're maybe in between a VP of sales. I'm working with a client now that didn't have a sales leader, and the CEO had been operating as the, part-time sales leader for the history of the company for the last 10 years or so. And he's looking to expand the team and bring on a sales leader. And he brought me in to get the processes in place, to get the system in place, everything in place, and have the current team trained on it. So then when we hired the VP of sales, we were able to hand him, like, look, we have a well-oiled machine going on here, and these are the 6 very specific responsibilities we're looking for you to take on and to reinforce. And it's been going as smoothly as we, could have hoped. And it has just set the VP up for so much more success. He was able to onboard so much more quickly and make sure he's holding the team to a certain standard. And now we're looking to expand the team by about 50% and onboard all the new members into the same standard.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. I love, those stories. And the way I look at it as well, because not only am I running a sales team, but, we are recruiting for salespeople. When
Yeah.
I work with clients, if they have their processes defined and they understand what that looks like for their team, it really impacts who they're hiring, the experience of the person that they're hiring. Like, it really helps define the skills that they need versus they're just hiring a salesperson. The person comes in and doesn't really have any structure and they make it up on their own. But when they have that structure, when they have the processes, we're able to understand, like, what is the process? Who is going to be successful, in this role? And just understanding and being more intentional about the people that you're bringing in so that you can, that can drive everybody to have more success.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. At what stage of growth do you think it becomes critical for companies to invest in processes before adding headcount? Because there's got to be that, beginning stage, first couple of hires where you really don't have the process, where you're figuring it out. When does it really become critical to make sure that you get that in place?
Yeah, I think the word critical is the word here that creates a bit of nuance. I mean, if I could just share, I think that the process should be in place immediately, like day one. If you're a tiny startup with founder-led sales, then the founder should be seeking out help to implement a clearly defined sales process so he or she can be shown what their blind spots are within their own process. Because likely a founder-led sales company will then become a company with a small sales force that's managed by whom? The founder. And so if the founder has a sales process in place that he or she has run that expose their personal blind spots and that is an effective and efficient way of selling their product or service, then as they hire people on, there's a good chance they were never a sales manager in their previous career. And so now they have a process that they can manage someone toward. And from there, everything is created within those standards and within that process. So, the question of when does it become critical? typically when you're moving from a sales team that is very closely managed by the founder to one that can't be as closely managed because you're scaling to 4 or 5 people and you're thinking of bringing on a leader, that to me is like, that's the point of no return. You have to do something at that point or you are just creating a nightmare. In an ideal world, the founder themselves humbles themselves to find someone to help them with a sales process. One of my earliest clients, he was starting a financial advisory firm, and it was just him, and he was a solopreneur. And he recognized that he couldn't help anyone he didn't sell to. And he came in, he developed a sales process for himself, saw all the blind spots he had and the ignorance he had around consultative selling that he didn't even realize, became a huge advocate, like a very fast learner, huge advocate, and now has built his entire company. And he has about 8 or 10 advisors at this point. And they all follow the exact same process, the exact same system. And he can speak to it because he said, no, 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 like you're doing it wrong. And I know because I was taught to do it 10 years ago by Chris. And he showed me I was doing the same thing you were doing. And this is why it doesn't work. And so sort of a non-answer, but to you, like out of like the critical point, but I would say as early as you possibly can, and it will be one of the best investments you'll ever make in the company. Like nothing is a better investment than investing in the top line growth potential of the company.
Yeah. Yeah. And it does. Oftentimes, we as well are working with the founders, founder of the company that's leading sales. And it takes a lot of that. They have to be humble. They have to be able to realize that, sometimes they think like, it just oh, if I can do it, this person can do it. But no, we've got to get those processes out of that person's head, figure out what works, and then lean on experts, like you said, like to be able to see their blind spots, and they've got to be open to that feedback as well, because there's so much room for improvement and figuring out. And if you want to scale your company, you've got to have those repeatable processes where you're not going to get where you want to get if the founder is the only one that can close deals and sell. You've got
Yeah,
to have that repeatable process to that anyone can follow.
for sure. Yeah, and as you scale, you become every person you bring on in your revenue team, you become 1 degree removed
Mm.
from the passion of the founder. And so, like so often in life, people are very influenced by feelings and by love and by passion. And that's why founders often can sell. Even some founders who have no sales process at all are able to figure out a way to sometimes very effectively sell their product and service because they just are so passionate about it that
Mhm.
it just jumps out to the prospect. But the more people you bring on, the further you get from that. And that's when these systems become so much more important.
Yeah, I agree with that. So very much. I see it all the time.
Yeah.
So it's so true. And some leaders like worry that process can feel like red tape, or that it's slowing their people down and things like that. Like, how do you create processes that empower people instead of slowing them down and feeling like red tape?
Yeah, I think those are fair concerns. I also think that being able to attune to that individual and figure out exactly like what do you mean by red tape? Like what are you specifically concerned about? And then evolving a structure and a process to make space for that, right? And to take that into account. But I think more than anything, if you implement a process, a sales process, it will make things significantly more efficient. And this is sort of the blind spot founders often have, and sometimes even revenue leaders, is without the process, the sales cycle likely takes 2 to 3 times as long. You get a lot more people ghosting you. You get people not really committing, not taking action. Like it may create some red tape on the back end, right? But it also speeds things up in the customer facing conversations significantly. So I think being able to recognize, what is their long term vision? What is their long term vision? And what is more important, achieving the long term vision or moving at hyper speed right now? And maybe moving at hyperspeed right now is more important. And that is the only thing that matters to them. They're probably not the type of person that would want to actually allow themselves to slow down to implement processes. But people who have success over the long term are people who are willing to do that.
Yeah, yeah. And then can you like talk a little bit about you mentioned it before just when you were answering this question, but walk us through the connection between like efficiency, culture, and the bottom line. Like how does that all come together?
Yeah, well, I think, sales is a very stressful job for a variety of reasons. Number one, you are run typically by a quota that is not determined by you, although it should be co created by you, but it typically isn't. You are judged by what have you done for me lately. So you don't get a lot of legacy career capital. You're getting rejected by people all the time. So when you think about what was it, culture, efficiency,
And the bottom line.
and the bottom line, um, when you think about culture, it's how are you creating a culture of radical responsibility? Are you creating a culture that actually empowers the entrepreneurial nature of your salespeople? Are you creating a commission structure and a revenue structure that rewards them for going above and beyond if that's what they feel like doing? And are you creating a culture in which those people that have other things going on in their life, maybe a spouse or a partner, a large family, like sick family members, whatever it is, that it's okay if they're just profitable for 3 or 6 months, right? And they can give themselves space to balance the personal and professional obligations that they have going on. And so, do you build a culture that actually supports people wanting to contribute to the bottom line over a long term? And is that culture attuned to them individually to understand why Sarah, the account executive, wants to make $600,000 this year? Not just that it's her quota, but why does she actually want to make it? What will it open up for her in her life? What will it open up for her in her career if she's able to achieve that, that stretch goal that she has? Right? Being able to slow down and have those conversations in the energy of co creation allows the culture and the bottom line to fit seamlessly together. And then you'll be able to understand very quickly if you have individuals that don't want to bring that type of mindset or being. And you can find, another option for them.
Yeah.
The efficiency then comes is in then teaching them how to go about their day-to-day role from a behavioral perspective and from a performance-based perspective to put a plan together to track toward those types of bottom line revenue goals.
Yeah. I think that's fantastic advice. I've noticed that building culture on a sales team is different than company culture in general
Yeah.
because everybody is working towards a quota, at a quota. It's very, so it's a lot harder to build that great culture, like you said, that supports not only them being profitable and hitting their goals, but understanding why they want to hit their goals, who they are as a person, what motivates this person, because that's different from person to person throughout
Yep.
the company, but especially on a sales team when you really want to, have that great culture to, have people motivated, engaged, and, retain them on your team, especially for those top performers.
Yeah. And move people from an energy of fear and scarcity into
Mm,
an energy of abundance and possibility,
yeah.
and helps them tap deeper into their why. Like,
Yeah.
I'm going after this number not just because my manager told me I have to hit it, but because my manager and I sat down for an hour and we planned out my year and I told him what I wanted to accomplish in my life and provide for my partner and my family or put in my retirement, and we figured out that this is the number I would need to hit in order for me to fulfill the desires that I have. And then all of a sudden the job becomes a vehicle for you to achieve the things you desire most, not just as a way for you to survive.
Right.
And that changes the relationship between the individual and the company
Yeah.
dramatically, and creates a lot of space for real, genuine gratitude and appreciation.
Right. It's not just about hitting your quota because that's your quota and that's what's on the board and that's what they said. It's about hitting your quota to get to your goals and your accomplishments and what that means for you. So
Yeah.
I love that. For founders that are listening today, what's a good first step that they can take into ensure their processes are strong enough before bringing new people onto the team?
Yeah, I think one thing that they can do specifically from a sales perspective is to really take the time to audit what their current process is, where it came from, and is everyone aligned on the process? Like, is everyone aligned on this process that this is the process we're going to use? And I would always encourage someone to get an outsider's perspective on it, whether it's me or whether it's someone else. Because just like I found out hundreds of times in my life, when I think I know, I don't actually know. And they call them blind spots for a reason. So I would really encourage any founder to slow down, get on the same page with everyone about what the process is and why, and then to bring in an outsider's perspective to see what they might be missing.
Yeah, yeah, I think that is excellent advice, and I agree wholeheartedly with that. And yeah, whether it's you or someone else,
Sure.
finding somebody that can help you with their expertise is in sales. A lot of times, the founder, their expertise is in whatever the business is, and they're
Yes.
not an expert in sales. And really finding that expert that can help guide them through creating those processes and making all of that make sense and make it repeatable for other people is really that key. Getting it out of the founder's head and onto into processes. That
Hmm.
totally. So, Chris, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, and where people can find you.
Yeah, sure. So, I'm founder of Sell As You Are. I've had this company for almost 5 years. We do sales training and coaching, and we do some consulting also, depending on the needs of our clients. I reside in Annapolis, Maryland. Um, and prior to this, I was a VP of sales for a company up in Baltimore. Prior to that, I was a Sandler trainer and Sandler sales trainer. So, as I often say, like no matter where the Karate Kid goes, he never forgets wax on, wax off. And I feel like that's sort of my story too, with the energy and the concepts and the frameworks I bring to training. Like I'll never forget my time at Sandler and what I learned there. So the best place to find me is LinkedIn. I'm not really on many other social medias, so LinkedIn, just Chris Caldwell, and I'm the one who's the founder of Sell As You Are. There are a lot of Chris Caldwells out there, and so that would be the best place to, get in contact with me and shoot me a message on LinkedIn or just shoot me an email, which is chris@sellasyoure.com, or go to our website, sellasyoure, sellasyoure.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on Funnel Vision today.
Sure.
Really appreciate it, and I think that you've provided everyone here with great advice, on how to build those processes and why they're so important. So appreciate it and thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.